Good afternoon, our Facebook friends. This is Paul Wallin again, senior partner at Wallin Klarich, with my special guest, Matt Wallin, partner at Wallin Klarich. And today, if anyone uses the internet, you must know that the big story of today is about revenge porn. And ironically, we were going to discuss that before this story hit, and many news agencies are calling us for our advice on it. And that's why I brought Matt in, because he's very familiar with these cases. And Rob Kardashian decided, for whatever was in his head, that he would post naked and obscene photos, apparently, of Blac Chyna. And I brought Matt in to explain for you. First of all, I'd like to ask Matt, what is revenge porn?
Revenge porn in California requires several elements. Element number one being you have to have an image of someone who's nude or showing an intimate body part. In addition, you have to intentionally distribute that image. Beyond that, you have to, or there had to have been an understanding, didn't have to be a formal understanding, but some understanding, either explicit or implicit, that it was to remain private. And then beyond that, you had to know that when you distributed it, it was likely to cause serious emotional distress. And finally, it had to actually cause that emotional distress to the alleged victim or victim.
And if you're convicted of revenge porn in California, are you facing jail time?
It's a misdemeanor in California, a maximum of 6 months in county jail, and also a $1,000 fine.
Have you had an opportunity to see what Rob Kardashian posted?
Yes.
And what is your take on the elements of this crime and whether or not, if the prosecution prosecuted him, he would be convicted?
First things first, in order to render an opinion, it's mere speculation unless you've seen the images that are at the heart of it, because revenge porn revolves around the image itself and what the image depicts. In this case, from what I reviewed, certainly it would meet element number one, showing an intimate body part. It's not clear necessarily whether or not it would be identifiable who the person was. Generally in these cases, the ones I've handled, the image showed the intimate body part with the face. So the images I reviewed, it was cropped at the top. But again, he puts post text underneath it, which explains who it was. So I think there's several other elements. So I don't know if it's clear yet whether or not he intentionally or knew that it would cause serious emotional distress based on Blac Chyna's history.
Now let's talk about that. Apparently, Blac Chyna has a history of having many naked photos on the website, right?
Yeah, my understanding is she used to be a stripper. Now she's a reality star diva of sorts who likes to generate this type of attention, sometimes on her own, calling the paparazzi from what I've read. So I can't say that this would cause any emotional distress, maybe quite the opposite. It might end up helping her career, and who knows if she's behind it. So I don't think a lot of people are quick to jump on it and say, oh, revenge porn. I think it's probably far from it based on the last elements that require Rob to have known that it was going to cause serious emotional distress. And also, I can't imagine any DA being able to prove that it did cause such emotional distress.
Well, what about the words that apparently were with the pictures? They seem to be very mean-spirited. Could that impact whether or not the prosecution files charges?
It's certainly not a good look for Rob if the language under there goes to further exasperate the problem and is taking digs at her. But really the text of the law speaks to the image, speaks to whether or not there's nudity or any sexual acts being depicted. The law doesn't really speak to any subtext included with the image.
What if Blac Chyna says, I don't want to prosecute? Then what?
It's not entirely up to her. Under the law, it's the district attorney's responsibility to prosecute. However, they're going to need her in the sense of proving up element number 5, which is a showing of serious emotional distress. If she doesn't communicate with them, they're going to have a hard time doing that, especially considering you type into Google her name, and likely the images that will come up aren't all that different from the ones that he posted. Maybe a little more graphic, but that's not the whole story. That's not enough to meet the elements of the crime.
So in this case, he apparently posted some pictures of her naked breast. If there are hundreds of pictures of her naked breast that she knew were on there before, would that lead someone to believe that she's probably not going to have major emotional distress over it?
I would imagine you'd have to make the connection that because it came from someone else's account, that somehow that act makes it so emotionally disturbing, whereas if she posted on her own social media, it doesn't cause any. So I don't see the connection. You really have to consider the whole context. This is not someone who works a 9-to-5 job and has no exposure online or with the media. It's quite the opposite based on her history.
Thank you, Matt. What is very important to understand is these two reality TV stars. First of all, it's hard for me to understand why they're reality TV stars. But apart from that, the real world, in the cases we represent in the real world where people are not reality TV stars, it's sort of clear to be able to tell people, use your common sense. If you take naked photos of each other because you think that's cool and it's part of your sex thing, that's great. But for the average person who isn't a stripper, who hasn't had thousands of pictures of their naked body on the internet, you're in big trouble if you decide to post pictures of your ex-girlfriend because you're pissed at her. That's what apparently happened here, and ironically, Rob may get off the hook because she is a stripper, which is sort of unfair also, because at very, very least, he's a complete jerk for doing this. But the crazy society we live in, they're probably both going to get more publicity over this and be on TMZ 5 more times. That's what's crazy about our society. First of all, I want to thank Matt for being here and thank you and congratulate you for being named Super Lawyer for 2017. That's pretty cool.
Appreciate it.
Thank you guys for watching. We really want you to listen to this law because most people are not Rob Kardashian. Some people won't even be able to afford a lawyer. Please restrain yourself, and if you take naked pictures of each other, keep them between the two of you. That would be really cool. Have a great week.